Here on Dated Gamehouse, we mainly review PC titles, both new and old, but we've been getting an overwhelming amount of requests to look at some titles for platforms more people are likely to own. Now, since graphics cards like the GTX 280 or Radeon HD 4870 are still quite pricey, not to mention that current generation consoles and their games are nowhere near as affordable as some of the last generation games, we've decided to review some stuff you can get for dirt cheap. If you're a fan of the Colin McRae Rally or recent dirt games by Codemasters, then you might have at least caught a glimpse of the box art for MASTER RALLEY at your local game store. This game was originally released for PC back in 2001. What you're looking at right now is the PlayStation 2 version released the following year, and it's an arcade-style driving game that doesn't quite know what it wants to be, but I'll get into that later. Even for an early PlayStation 2 title, this game looks pretty ugly. Now, I'm not expecting the kind of graphics you see today on the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360, or the Wii for that matter, but Colin McRae Rally 2.0 on the PlayStation 1 looks more polished. To give it credit, at least it's not a massive downgrade from the PC version. That didn't look great either, even on a GeForce 3. They could have at least given us 60 frames per second, like how Gran Turismo 3 did. It should really be no surprise, but the Dreamcast had much better looking driving games than this, and that console came out 2 years before the PlayStation 2 in Japan. The textures are really muddy, and visual damage on the vehicles isn't all that impressive. I wish I could say the sound fares a bit better, but it doesn't. The overall sound mix is really noisy and chaotic. For the first time in a while, I had to mess around with the options menu to get the sound even close to listenable. The music is very inconsistent in quality. As this was released at the start of the decade, it's got a lot of weird techno and just plain awful rock tracks. It's not even that the music itself is bad. In fact, there's a lot of parts I like about each track. It's just really repetitive and makes you want to just shut the music off and play some White Zombie or something. The control is where it gets interesting, because despite the PlayStation 2 having analog control built in, unlike your average PC, it seems that the cars are much more predictable and the overall driving experience is a lot simpler and easier to control. I'm not too upset about this, since the original really was a handful with the arrow keys, but this game can still be quite hard because your opponents are as dumb as the jackasses that drive these kind of SUVs in real life and make changing lanes a nightmare. If you're gonna make my morning commute a pain, at least do it in an El Camino. Anyway, the AI likes to ram you like it's GT5 Prologue online, and spinning out never feels like it's your fault. As mentioned earlier, the trucks can take damage, which isn't shown all that much visually, but you've got a couple icons on the top right to notify you of the condition of your vehicle's components. Just like the driving, this too feels like it's been made more forgiving for the console release, and it brings the game closer to that arcade feel where you've got a little more leeway with how you drive. As far as single player content goes, you've got quick races as well as a training mode that I never bothered with, and also a challenge mode where you're given a truck and a single opponent to beat. Just like many driving games of the time, the focus is on completing cups while working your way through the various performance classes, while Master Rally overall has an arcade driving feel to the gameplay. There's a surprising amount of depth to the vehicle tuning, so if you really hate how a particular truck drives, you have that option. There is in fact one thing this game does quite well, and it sets it apart from the overall more popular and polished off-road driving games you've already played. The tracks in Master Rally are far more open and allow you to get creative with how you take shortcuts. There are very few places the game won't let you drive on. Generally, if you have enough speed, you can get over anything. Because of the changes in elevation on the terrain, you've also got to be smart about when you cut across the track, because it may end up slowing you down in the long run if you misjudge a section of the track. While the track design is unique and enjoyable, the visual variety really brings it down. You've been watching a couple different races, but honestly, if I'd recorded the same track multiple times with different trucks, you probably wouldn't have noticed. I can't say Master Rally is a bad game, because it isn't, but its standout feature isn't enough to overlook the incredibly boring overall racing experience. It might have been an enjoyable budget driving game when it released, especially since it came out before both Colin McRae Rally Free or Richard Burns Rally. But those games are so affordable today that you may as well spend the little money you would have spent on this on something much better for the same price.